Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alaikum if you're joining us live, and of course, assalamu alaikum if you are catching us on the replay. If you're new to the channel, my name's Aisha Abdul Hadi, and I help Muslimahs succeed without overwhelm. And we are, subhanAllah, on day 24 of our live daily vlogs of our brand new series called The Balanced Muslimah, in which I try and give you some tips and some advice on various different topics just to help you in your everyday living, really, based on what might have worked for either for me or for local ladies that I've worked with in the community when it comes to things like parenting and managing your personal life, your professional life, and everything else that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, alhamdulillah. So today we've got another great topic for you. It's about giving charity daily. And you might be thinking, how is that related to the overall theme of being a balanced Muslimah? But if I ask you, when you hear the word charity, what do you normally think of? Usually people think of it in terms of giving money. But what if I told you that in your day-to-day living, you're probably giving a lot more charity than you realize? And of course, I'm talking about sadaqah. What is sadaqah for those of you who might not know? Sadaqah is an act of charity as well, and it's given out of compassion or religious duty or generosity. And it can be anything. It can be a smile, it can be removing some litter from the road, for example. And anyone can give any amount of sadaqah at any time. It is not like zakat, which is a set amount that has to be paid once a year. It's not like that. So according to the hadith, every act of goodness is a charity, subhanAllah. And in that sense, aren't we blessed as Muslims? Because you could be doing so many things, as we'll see later on, that are already constituted as charity or as sadaqah without even thinking about it or realizing it. For example, listen to these other hadith. A smile is a charity. How many times a day do you smile and you don't even think about it, subhanAllah, but you're doing an act of charity? Removing harmful things from the road, from the path, is considered charity, and a kind word is charity. So what does charity do to benefit you then as somebody in your day-to-day life? Various different things, alhamdulillah. It purifies your wealth, it purifies your heart. In the Quran, it says in Surah Baqarah in ayah 261, interpretation of the meaning, that increases barakah and opens the door of sustenance for you. And remember, we did an entire vlog on barakah, so if you missed that one, make sure you go and catch it. It protects you from the calamities according to the hadith. So it could be that because of any act of charity that you did, some harm was going to reach you, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevented it because of the act of charity that you did, subhanAllah. Now let's think of some of the ways in which you might be already doing charity. And this is one of the main reasons why I thought this talk was important for today and as part of this series. Because sometimes as a Muslim, it might be that you are tired or overwhelmed or exhausted, or you just go about your daily life doing so many things, but you don't actually think, subhanAllah, that actually what I'm doing counts as a charity. So subhanAllah, there's the charity that's through the kindness and good manners. So some example of these I've mentioned. It could be things like smiling, smiling at your children, smiling at the neighbors, smiling when you're out and about. Speaking gently. Making dua for somebody else, like silently, so they don't know you're making dua for them. Maybe you've supported another sister emotionally or offered encouragement to her. There's also charity through household and family duties. So a lot of you would be able to resonate with these things because, like I said, you would do them all the time, but you wouldn't necessarily think that you're being charitable by doing them. So things like your cooking, subhanAllah, if you have the right intention, and remember I say this every single time about actions are based on intention, that you're doing it, for the good reasons to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe someone else is coming around unexpected and you're cooking extra for them, or maybe somebody's ill and you're cooking for them. So you can think of that as giving a form of sadaqah as well. Helping people with education, whether these are your own children or other children in the community. Maybe you take care of elderly family members or any other family members, and you go out of your way to do this with good intention, good niyyah. You're just doing it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be a kind, helpful person. There's also charity through time and knowledge. So maybe you're helping another mother that's struggling. Maybe you're volunteering some time out in the community to do something, whether that's like a one-off thing or an ongoing thing. Maybe you're sharing your beneficial knowledge. I always used to say to the sisters of my Saturday study circle that whatever you learn here, sisters, today, even if it's one small piece of knowledge and you feel like it benefited you, go home and first teach it to your children or to other ladies that you might know, whether that's your sister or anyone in the community, subhanAllah, and that can be your sadaqah for you. Teaching someone a skill, maybe you're somebody who's particularly skilled at something and you're going to use your time to teach them, and maybe it's not even of any benefit to you, but you're just doing it as a sadaqah so that you can skill them up and it could be beneficial for them. Then there's charity through small physical actions. So this is things like I've mentioned, picking up litter off the street, for example, or in a public space. Maybe you went out with your children and you had a picnic somewhere and you're just clearing up some of the rubbish that's around you. It could be even as simple as that. Holding a door open for somebody else, helping an elderly neighbor. Maybe you offered somebody a ride in your car, subhanallah. And then it comes to the type of one that we are all most familiar with, which is the financial charity, the one where you give either money or clothes or food, and you do it again to help others who might be in need. And you are being selfless by doing it. And you're not doing it to show off or gain praise from somebody else. You're just doing it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're thinking in your heart, actually, I've got these things, they're of no use to me. Or even maybe they're in new condition and you just think that somebody else would benefit from them. So I'll just go out of my way and give it to charity through that way. Or if you know individuals, through that way. But that's another form of doing charity. There's another type, which is charity through dua and forgiveness. Maybe you make dua for other people, whether they are good or bad. That's not your concern in this case. And maybe they've even wronged you and they're not nice people, but subhanAllah, imagine you just forgave them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you even made dua in their favor, subhanAllah. Then imagine how Allah is going to be treating you on the day of judgment. You do the same to them, how you want to be treated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanAllah. Forgiving someone who hurt you just for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So by doing all of these things, it's classed as charity. And again, a lot of them you would be doing anyway in your everyday life. So imagine, you had good intentions when you did them. And if you thought of it in a positive manner, when you might be getting exhausted and tired, thinking that actually, subhanAllah, this counts as inshallah. You make dua that Allah, please count this as a form of, sadaqah, as a form of charity from me. So how can we increase this kind of charity in our daily life? Well, obviously, make sure you have the right intentions. Teach your children even that small acts of kindness are worth doing, and why, as Muslims, for us, it's a form of charity, smiling at people. A lot of the time when children go to school and they have their own ethos and their own set of rules, and the schools call themselves family. And they have these posters on the wall and it says that we're kind with each other, we pick up litter off the street. We should be empowering and educating our children that as Muslims, this is integral part of our deen, actually. So we should be doing it by setting an example, and also by thinking of it as small acts of charity, subhanAllah. We've had children in the masjid as well who have come and given donations to the new mosque project through their own pocket money, subhanAllah. And we always encourage them to do that, and we always call them out and praise them and say that that's a really good thing you've done as setting an example, subhanAllah, because it's easy for parents to come and bring their money, but for a little child to think from themselves that actually I'm going to give some of my hard-earned money or my pocket money, what belongs to me, for a greater cause, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's teaching them from a small age that it's not only about ourselves, but we should always think about giving a portion of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us to those who might be less fortunate, or to a greater good, another project, subhanAllah. Use technology in a positive way for charity. So there's so many apps out there now, especially when it comes to the month of Ramadan, where it says, you can divide your money, so you're giving a bit every day without having to sort of think about it on autopilot, and things like that as well, inshallah. Or just put in reminders in your calendar on a weekly basis, whether it's something specific that you want to do as an act of charity, so that you don't forget. Because remember what we said earlier about being consistent. We've said it in other vlogs that the small deeds are really rewardable and the best especially if they are consistent, right? So it doesn't matter how big or small they are, your good deeds, including being charitable. Even if you're doing something very small, it's not very small in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially if you do it consistently. Remember what we said about all these small things accumulating and then having a big impact. So I always give the example of 1 year. So if you go by a single year and you've got 365 days, imagine you did just a small act of charity, small act of sadaqah every day for 365 days of the year, subhanallah, and then you're just thinking to yourself, the reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I've done something consistently every day, what was manageable for me, and I've done it across a year, subhanallah. So I encourage all of you to try and think next time when you're doing your, day-to-day habits, whatever they are, that are some of these, or could some of these be considered an act of charity, inshallah, and just try and actively think about that and then teach your children as well, inshallah. I hope you enjoyed today's vlog. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget you can catch all the other vlogs from this series on the Live Islamic Classes playlist on the YouTube channel. I will see you again tomorrow, inshallah, at the same time. But until tomorrow, I will love you and leave you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.